Warpugs. So today I'm going to be checking out something from BurialGoods. This is longer than I've seen from him before. And this is Interrogated by a Death Guard Warlord. Now, considering how long this is, I can only assume it's not something like I've normally seen from BurialGoods, where he's just doing something fun, like the pigs from the Oats saga replaced by Space Marines. I can only assume this is something not in that same regard. So, with that being said, I can only assume that this is going to be a horror story because being interrogated by a Death Guard Warlord sounds about as exciting as, I don't know, finding out that you're covered in a meat suit and you just got dumped into a pond that has a great white shark in it that was just injected with about 30 pounds of liquid methamphetamine. I got a feeling this is going to be just not that good. Warpugs, BurialGoods has made me laugh, but his voice is perfectly suited to doing so much other voice acting, voice work, things like that. I'm just going to get ready to jump into this. Guys, hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check the links in the description below. Let's get started.
He blinks, and a shifting world comes back into something like focus. He feels horribly ill, more than normal for a void transit.
Okay.
He is lying on his back, and he twists over to be sick.
Okay, 1 second. I'm going to boost my own audio on this end because it is remarkably low. There we go. That's better.
He sees the vomitous slap onto the floor, thick and greasy.
Great.
And the smell appalls him. Then he lies on his back again, panting. He is clammy and cold, and he shuts his eyes. His chest hurts. He does not want to be alive. That thought prompts him to force himself awake properly. Perhaps there is something he can do about that. Spite the enemy before the advent of whatever questioning or torment they have in mind. He blinks again, hard, clearing room from his eyes. He tries to get a sense of where he is and what has happened. He is inside a cell, metal lined, metal floored. It stinks.
It's Death Guard.
Some of that stink is from him.
Oh boy.
His uniform is soiled, and his various excreta reek. Foul matter is caked on every surface. The metal is heavily oxidized, stained and calcified. The floor is wet, and little bubbles pop to the surface of oily puddles. He is on a long bench, also metal, also rusting away to nothing. The lone lumen is a chain-suspended sodium lamp. Is dirty as everything else. There are furry things with many eyes crawling up the walls.
Great.
Dantine wipes his mouth and tries to sit up. His rib cage is the worst. He must have been hit hard there. His knife is gone, of course, as is anything else sharp. Aside from the smell, there is a taste in the air. A chemical taste.
Great.
Like something fermenting. He hears noises all around him, just as one always does on a starship. Noise resounds within a vessel in space from the total enclosure. Running on top of the endemic growl of engines, air cyclers, water cyclers, shield generators, and the rest. But this one is different to any starship he has been on before.
I knew that his voice was perfectly suited to this kind of stuff. I'm already not doing good.
He can detect horrible noises just below the grind of the machinery.
Great.
Some are moans, some are repeating cries, some are unidentifiable.
Those are always the fun ones.
Dantine is not a cowardly man, but those noises make him shiver. He looks up. The cell's solitary door is opening. Weak as he feels, he clenches his fists and prepares to move.
Go for it, bro.
Metal shrieks as the heavy door is shoved inward. Dantine leaps, seeing something huge and blurry in the gap, and going for it. He falls short, nearly passing out the instant he moves, and collapses into his own refuse. On his knees, he feels like weeping. He can barely lift a fist, let alone do his duty and attack his tormentor. He does not resist as huge hands reach for him, lift him up, place him back on the slab. Then he is looking up into the same eyes as before, at the numbers scrawled plates, at the bizarrely parked and bloated armor.
Great.
Do not try that again, the monster says. The voice is just as it was on Nyan.
Nope.
Like a throat submerged in oil.
Nope.
Cracking and engine harsh. The language is also strange and hard to follow, though patently some form of Gothic.
Why don't you kill me?
Dantine croaks. The monster gives him a canister of water. He takes it and drinks greedily.
You're gonna regret that one, my guy.
I am named Vox, Siege Master of the 14th Legion, called the Death Guard. You are on the ship Solace, in the care of the Lords of Silence. What is your name? Once the thing has a name, you can no longer call him it.
Yes, you can.
He becomes a person, albeit of the most warped and esoteric kind. Even in the midst of his nausea and weakness, Dantine cannot escape a sliver of awe that creeps in. This warrior is old beyond imagination. That is evident just from the way he looks, moves, and speaks. He even smells old. One of the melange of aromas this creature gives off is the kind of decay only the truly decrepit exude.
I am not decrepit, warpugs.
There had always been rumors, never spoken of except in the most intimate company, of space marines who had turned, who had given themselves over to the ruinous powers. Most sensible people discounted the notion. A space marine could not turn, but still the gossip never went away. Dantine remembered serving with a lieutenant who swore he'd heard a definite account of this happening, with campaign names and dates.
Huh.
2 weeks later, that lieutenant was summoned to a meeting with the commissariat and never returned.
Remember, kids, Chaos Marines don't exist, and if they do exist, you're going to die for it.
For most, that was proof he must have been spouting heretical rubbish. For a few thoughtful souls, though, it was enough to give them pause.
Captain Gavel Dantine, Nyan, Station Resident Defense Force.
He says,
PDF Trooper.
I do not think you began your career on Nyan, says Vox. You fought like a man who knows how to use a weapon. Is this right? He doesn't want to reply. He wants to remain defiant, to list his name and position again, until they tire of it, and either kill him or bring in instruments of torment. Perhaps it is the eyes that do it, looking into those deep lenses, swimming with what looks like some kind of marsh gas, drains his resolve. Or perhaps it is the crushing stink, his physical weakness, the knowledge that everyone who had served with him on that world is now dead.
I
That'll do
served
it.
in the Astra Militarum for 15 years.
15 years. The creature Vox shifts so that he is standing a little further off. His movements are almost awkward, as if the bones within that colossal hulk have been warped or rearranged.
Probably both.
Things gurgle as he shuffles, or they drip, or they weep lines of glistening liquid. That is a long time to stay alive in service. You must have been a good soldier, Captain Dantine.
Not really.
What brought you to Nyan? He does not wish to answer this. The creature senses it and, surprisingly, lets it drop. No
Probably family.
matter. Every man must have his secrets. Vox reaches up to brush a strand of something viscous from his gorget.
Ugh.
I have more important questions. The world you guarded was not unimportant. It should have been better protected. There should have been ships on response patrol. There should have been distress signals sent. Why was this not done? Dantine doesn't know. But Akaria hadn't known. He shrugs and shakes his head. We have analyzed your records, Vox says patiently. There should have been naval support and regiments of your Astra Militarum on standby.
Okay.
At the very last resort, you are under the protection of a chapter of Space Marines, are you not?
Obviously
There
not.
seems little point in denying that. Dantine finds he wants to talk, and that disgusts him. He had hoped to be so much stronger,
The White Consuls.
he says. The White Consuls. Vox nods appreciatively. A venerable name.
Huh.
Why are they not here? Dantine shakes his head again, miserably.
Nothing works.
He mutters.
The beacon's down. The astropaths are dead. The sky's bleeding.
Why did he use that word? That's not like him. He's a soldier, not a poet. Vox nods, taking it all in. So you're all blind now, just as the other one said. How interesting.
No, not interesting.
Dantine
Bad.
scowls.
There'll be a response from someone. You'll be sent back to...
The Eye of Terror, Captain Dantine, Vox says.
This thing, this Death Guard is being surprisingly even keel. And this is actually quite refreshing to see someone write chaos this way. It's very refreshing to see this done, because usually Traitor Astartes written about is going to be monumentally dickish and overbearing, and a list of other adjectives that are all negatively ascribed to management or anything like that. You guys get the picture. They're not written well sometimes. They're often written like utter dicks. It's one of my main complaints about custodians is the fact that anytime they are shown to interact with anyone, they are just colossal dicks. And they're all supposed to be trained diplomats and statesmen. This is why I just think the Imperium doesn't have a concept of diplomacy besides gunboat diplomacy.
You know that name, I assume. It has been our home for a long time.
Long time.
Not by choice. He comes closer again, and the aroma of festering meat is hard to cope with. It was a prison, rooted into the fabric of reality. Breaking it open, it appears, has also broken everything else. Perhaps that was anticipated by those who did it. Perhaps not. He sniffs. I find myself disappointed. We are cast adrift, and all has already been laid waste. I have my followers to think of. They are made for a life of conquest. If I cannot give it to them, they will find someone else who can. Dantine cannot look away, even though he wants to. He feels sick again, as if his body has been scraped empty. He does not know what to say. He does not even know what to think.
I am a great horror to you.
Volk says.
Yeah.
That is certainly true.
A long time ago,
Volk says.
I was a horror to myself. The universe is full of horror.
Okay.
You can resist it and drive yourself into madness. Or you can accept it and then begin to understand it. I would recommend the latter course. Though I accept you must feel differently.
A little bit, yeah.
For now,
The conversational tone is absurd. Dantine is seen with these things do.
Why did you come here?
He asks weakly, wishing he could think of something better to say. Something more accusatory.
Keep fighting, bud.
did not come here by choice. The warp's winds blew us here.
Okay.
Before reaching your world, we had no fixed point to guide us. Now we know where we are to a degree.
That's great.
Plan where to go next. It is the beginning of something unexpected.
Dantine tries to make himself angry. He tries to remember all those he saw being killed.
Why?
He asks feebly.
Not for the reason you think.
Vorx lumbers off again.
Uh-huh.
He seems to feel the need to keep moving, albeit in his stilted, stumbling manner.
There is a nobler way of living. We show this to the galaxy.
I'm so not in the mood to hear a Death Guard talk about nobility. Like, it's about as noble as a dog turd.
We demonstrate it in our bodies,
Yeah.
and we protect them from those who would harm it. We are the bringers of the god's blessing.
Dantine stares at the monster. For a moment, he is entirely lost for words.
You killed them all.
I did not kill you.
Why?
I do not know. Ha! Do you believe that?
The monster muses.
I am a believer in fate. I recognize a conjunction when I see one. For what it is worth, that has kept me alive for longer than most, and I do not intend to turn an opportunity aside.
Why do you do it?
Dantine could feel himself losing control. He could become angry if he were not so worn out and nauseous.
You were a man once, were you not? You were a human?
I still am, of a kind.
Of a kind,
Volks
yeah.
is not looking at him.
We are all on a spectrum, Captain. You are at one end, I am at the other. We are still the same species.
You are mad.
Volks chuckles again.
I have lost count of how many times that insult has been aimed at me.
You know, if a dozen people tell you something because you start spouting awesome crap in front of them, maybe it's not them that's wrong.
By your kind, by my kind.
He is still pacing, as if counting out steps. There are things, sluggish things, that seem to be living in his armor.
The accusation is only meaningful if you can give me some suitable account of sanity. I saw the way you lived on that world. I have seen the way Imperial citizens live on 100 worlds. If you truly believe that this is a sane galaxy, and that we are the aberrations, then I pity you. But then, you have not seen all the alternatives yet.
Yes, because living a life where you have a family and friends and do not have rats crawling around in your intestines taking a shit and having babies is somehow insane.
When you do, your mind may change.
Dante tries to clench his fist. As the monster speaks, he attempts to gather the strength to lunge at him again. When he cannot do so, he slumps against the bench, defeated.
I wish to hurt you,
He says, mournfully.
Good man.
Vork stops pacing.
Of course you do. I do not blame you for that, but I cannot allow it. See, we have asked for this.
He reaches down to one of the many pouches at his belt. He rummages for a moment and then draws out a thick bag, stained black from the liquids within. He moves closer to Dantine, opens the bag, and brings something out. For a moment, Dantine does not know what it is. Then he thinks it is meat, raw meat, offered as sustenance. Then he sees that it is a heart, blotchy with blood, and that it is still beating.
No.
The grisly spectacle makes him recoil until a greater horror dawns on him. His hands fly up to his chest under the ripped jerkin of his uniform, and he feels the ridge of scar tissue there. Vorks puts the heart back in the bag and ties it to his belt again.
Your first lesson.
He says,
How are such things possible? They are not in the only world you have ever known. But there is a greater one in which all things are made possible.
Bruh.
Dantine is hyperventilating. He cannot bear to touch the wound at his chest anymore. It makes him feel dizzy.
how did...
He starts. Hush, says Vorks, holding a stumpy, callous finger to his Vox grill as he moves back to the door.
Enough for one day.
Oh my god.
You will need to rest if you are to be of service.
How am I alive?
Vorks looks at him.
Are you sure that you are, Captain?
He opens the door and steps across the threshold.
You're insane!
Screeches Dantine, crawling after him. Then the door clangs close, and ripples travel across the watery filth on the floor. Dantine is trembling. He draws in huge breaths, unable to understand how he's still able to do so. It is a nightmare. I will wake from it soon. He tries to sing the words of the hymn, the one they recited on the barricade, to give him strength. But he cannot remember the words. He looks around, at the walls and the ceiling, at the rot and the slurry. He smells the decay, the dankness, and sees how complete his prison is. By the time he is screaming, the cell door is securely locked. Dantine's despair adds to the cacophony of voices already raised. Just one more addition to Solace's varied choir. It goes on for a long time, until unconsciousness takes him again and the cell finally slinks back into its watery, torpid well of silence.
Bro. There is a short list. A short list of things that monumentally suck beyond all measure in 40K. Now, what I mean by that, I might be having a power outage, guys. Give me a second. What I mean by that is there is a very short list of things that are more screwed up than the screwed up. Like Demonculava being one of them, being captured by the Drakari. That, you know, definitely up there. Being captured by any member of the Emperor's Children who looks at you and says, I like you. There is being made into a servitor. There's a list of deaths in 40k that are awful. Just flat out, completely awful. Then there is an existence that's awful. And he is in that existence now. Warpug's BurialGoods voice is perfectly suited to this kind of stuff. My goodness gracious, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. I don't know who wrote that. I don't know where that came from. The Death Guard in this Vork's, he was written extremely well. He didn't talk, like, I hate when I read stories where every single Space Marine interaction with a mortal, unless it's the main guy that we're supposed to root for, is completely and totally annoying to read. Dismissive, and that Space Marine in this, that Death Guard in this passage showed more respect for this PDF trooper who used to be a guard trooper than most protagonist Space Marines I've ever seen. Guys, he showed him his own heart. I'm done, Warpugs. I'm going to take off from here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the like button if you haven't already. And join as a member of Patreon for early access. I will catch you guys next time. I hope you have a great day.